Hello everyone, Splimey here. We're going to be talking today about one of my favorite video games ever made, Spelunky HD. Released for the Xbox 360 based off Spelunky Classic made by Derek Yu, which was, I believe, sort of an indie PC game at one point, and thankfully was brought over to a wider audience on the Xbox Live Marketplace. Now, honestly, I think it's quite possibly the best roguelike ever made. In fact, I'm just going to say it. I'm going to say it's the best roguelike ever made. And I know you'll probably think that that title probably deserves, it probably is more deserving to a game like, I don't know, Enter the Gungeon or the Fetus one, Dead Cells, pick your poison. There's a million of these roguelikes now. They're pretty freaking popular, but Spelunky's sort of it's one of the earlier ones, at least in the indie sphere. It was a part of that indie explosion with games like Fez and whatnot that got popular and then really in the console market when it reached a wider audience than it would on the PC. I think Spelunky just is the best. I really, really think it's the best ever made. I think it's really just because it's different, the way that it interacts with the player and the expectations. I just can't really think of many games that consistently reach the gameplay design criteria that Spelunky has. And also the way it respects the player. I really don't think other roguelikes and really many other video games even come close. It is just a masterpiece. It's that damn good. Now, I think one of the things that really sets it apart is in terms of roguelike design, the fact that there's no player progression. It's a different kind of progression. It's more of a mental progression and a knowledge progression that many players maybe don't appreciate because we're used to video games now that have all these unlockables, all these items that you have to be getting. You have to be thinking about a grand picture for leveling up your character, but Spelunky doesn't operate on that parameter, which, respect to it, because in a world of video games today where they're just trying to keep you playing infinitely off of menial and dumb items and cosmetics, Spelunky is different. While you can earn different costumes for your characters, none of them affect gameplay. Even beyond that, there's really no way to unlock any sort of run-altering items. Run-altering items are merely randomly generated in the game, and you collect them as you go along. So really, you don't have any advantage by playing the game any longer than a beginner can. In fact, start up any new data on Spelunky, and you're at square one with anybody who's never played it at all. It's really an interesting design, and I don't think it's popular these days with many roguelikes because I don't think players respond to it positively. I could be wrong about that, but I know I do. And I really, really like this system because it really focuses on players getting the knowledge and getting the experience that they get in game and not having to rely on any sort of run-breaking builds or any kind of... I mean, there's luck in Spelunky, but it's just not the same. When you get your victories, beating the game for beginners is just a challenge in its own. It's really, really hard if you've never played it, and you might not think that because the graphics are, quite frankly, they're really kind of cutesy. They're just innocent, cartoonish characters. The music is kind of charming and inviting. But you're in for a world of hurt. If you've never played this game before, you are in for a world of hurt. You may not think that, but you really are. And many players criticize the game because they think it's unforgiving and cruel, but really, the only thing you're going to hate more than Spelunky playing it, as long as you will, which if you stick with it, you're going to be playing it a lot. The only thing you're going to hate more than the game is yourself, because that's really where Spelunky shines. You're kind of just playing against yourself. You have all these characters and, enemies and traps, but really the person that causes the most damage is just you and your poor judgment. And you'll do it hundreds of times. I've done it thousands. I've played so much of this game. I've gotten all the achievements, love it to death. It's very, very difficult, but it is extremely rewarding. I got it on a whim years ago off Steam because I saw that it had good reviews and, it was also very cheap at the time. And I thought, oh, I've seen this on the Xbox Live Marketplace. I think I had a PC. I think I'd maybe just gotten a PC. And I thought, this would be kind of just a fun little game to kick around. Had no idea that it would just be consumptive. I mean, it consumed a huge portion of my not only gaming time, but embarrassingly my life. I was really hooked on it in a way that honestly many AAA games just can't even compare to. I mean, I don't know how many AAA games could get me to sink that many hours into just a single player game. And what's great about it, too, is that it is technically a very short game. I mean, if you look at the world records online, even though that's not the best metric to go by for game length, I mean, people are beating them in insane times. I mean, I think the world records are under 5 minutes. I could be wrong. I think they're way quicker than that. I can't remember off the top of my head. There's an achievement in the game for beating the game, I think under 8 minutes. I think I've done that too. It's pretty damn hard, but yeah, it's a pretty damn short game. I mean, for an average run, if you're being cautious, you could probably beat it in under it's like about 25, maybe 30 minutes. It's pretty short. It's a short game, but it's got so much to learn. There's so much content. There's so many secrets in this game, and there's so much knowledge that as you progress and as you learn, you feel amazing. It gives this real empowerment to the player that's done in a way that isn't cheap. There's nothing going on in the background in order to make you feel overpowered. In some games, like in some FPS games, they'll enable auto aim features in order to sort of cheese you and make you think that you have better aim than you really do. There's really nothing in that. There's nothing in the background of Spelunky. Like I said, like I've gone over before, you don't really get run-breaking items. And anything that is, I guess, I don't know if I would say there's any overpowered items, but there are certainly very, very crucial items that make you a much more formidable spelunker. They, while being helpful, they're not going to save you if you use poor judgment. And 9 times out of 10, getting those really powerful items causes you to overestimate your abilities. I mean, you're more likely sometimes by having a jetpack to get yourself killed. Even if you get capes and spring shoes, you're not going to instantly be the best. It's just, you got a lot to deal with. And on the other hand, you don't even need these items to beat the game. You don't need them. I mean, they help, and obviously you're not going to avoid them, but you can get through the entire game without even touching them. You don't have to. And that's what I like about it. And also, it's a game that I think is different from many other roguelikes because it doesn't prioritize twitch reflexes. Now, some roguelikes, now it's a roguelike that if you have the twitch reflexes, it's not bad. It certainly helps. I mean, being able to pull off crazy stuff. But really, it's not going to be as effective as learning and memorizing enemy placements, understanding the kinds of biomes you're going through, what traps are going to do, what items you need. It's really fun. Gosh, it has such a good gameplay loop. I'm thinking about it right now. When you start getting into the gameplay loop and your first goal is just to beat the game, and then you realize there's a secret ending, and then there's other biomes to explore. It's so enjoyable. I'm not someone who is a completionist with video games. I rarely complete many video games because, quite frankly, they're just not worth your time. But honestly, I just couldn't get enough of Spelunky. I've put in hundreds of hours, gotten all the achievements. It's fantastic. It really is. I would definitely recommend trying it. If you haven't, you're in really for a treat. It has a slightly difficult break-in time. You're probably not going to instantly click with it. I was lucky that I clicked with it fairly quickly. The initial phase is pretty rough, but I don't think it's overwhelming. I don't think that it's impossible. Well, it's certainly not impossible. I think that most people who play video games could do it, even with not that much effort. But you will have to pay attention, and it's a game where you're going to have to be accountable to your own actions. The game is, generally speaking, never unfair. It never is really going to put you in situations where you couldn't have done something better or figured something out. And I think it does this much better than most other roguelikes that I've seen. I think most other roguelikes rely just too much on run breaking items, or really their obsession is the combination of items, which can be fun. Like, I've played a lot of Gungeon. I love a lot of those kind of crazy, overpowered things. And if that's more your poison, more power to you. I'm not saying you can enjoy these. I think that they're great. They are great games, but there's a purity to Spelunky that I think is really missing in a lot of game design and what it expects of players. It's not often a lot of gamers. We either, we don't. Sometimes we don't really want developers to challenge us in certain ways, or maybe we want an extreme challenge that's exaggerated. And Spelunky's not that either, which I hope I haven't given that impression. It's also not an insanely unfair challenge that's just meant for, as they say, tryhards. It's not something you're just meant to get sweaty over. It's really a fun and exhilarating process of bettering yourself. Kind of like developing a new skill, really. It's fun. It's a fun process. It distills that in a very accessible and enjoyable form. I think it's so good, even that I'll do another video on this, but I don't really think that the sequel captured this nearly as well. I'm actually, as while I think that it's still a very good game, I think the sequel is quite frankly subpar to the original and sort of missed the original, design goals. I think it really abandoned much of the core philosophy that made Spelunky 1 probably the most airtight game I've ever played, and certainly the most airtight side scroller roguelike. It's fantastic. And the fact that it's sort of, to me, I think of Spelunky as an evolution in the pantheon of side scroller sort of 2D platformer games. I think it's the final evolution, or at least was the final evolution of many of those games. It has a lot of elements that you would see from like Mario games with the cape, some of the items, some of the basic enemies that you're dealing with. It slightly pays homage to those older games, but it most certainly is not stuck in the past with any of that. And it's in a modern context with an interesting design, with the procedurally generated worlds, the fact that every part of the stage is destructible. It's quite an accomplishment, and I think that Derek Yu, Andy Hull, they should really be proud of what they've done. And while I'm not a fan of Spelunky 2, I'm very happy that Mossmouth has been successful with some of their forward ventures. I hope they continue to make great stuff. I hope that Derek maybe goes back to some of his ways, goes back to the original Spelunky 1 ways a little bit more. But that being said, I wish him the best. I wish him success. So if you have not played Spelunky 1, please play it. It's really, really good. I thank you for checking out my channel. You can find me at Splimey on YouTube, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.